Welcome to the Purpose-Based Retirement with certified financial planner Casey Weade. Casey is the president of Howard Bailey Financial.
Whatever risk you face during your retirement years, we've got a plan.
A published author and radio host.
It's not how much we make during the good times, it's how much we keep during those really bad times.
His advocacy for retirees and pre-retirees has made him a sought-after speaker and trusted financial leader.
And putting a real plan together.
This is the Purpose-Based Retirement.
Thank you for tuning in. I am certified television host Lee Kelso here with certified financial planners Casey Weade and Marshall Johnson from Howard Bailey Financial. And today we're going to be talking about, a broad range of topics. First of all, we're going to kick off with a strategy for withdrawing from your retirement funds. And then a little bit later in the program, we'll be taking a look at what are some of the first steps you need to take when you're thinking about retirement. So, a lot to cover today. Let's get to Casey and Marshall. And so, I've got all this money stashed away. Some of it is in a taxable account, some of it's tax deferred. Where do I go first when I need that retirement income?
Yeah, well, conventional wisdom and really traditional financial planning would say that we should spend those taxable accounts first and defer some of those IRA accounts, your qualified accounts, until later and take advantage of some of the tax advantaged growth that those accounts allow us to have. So we spend down our after-tax money, continue to defer those IRAs, but that can get us in a world of hurt if we're not taking in consideration your complete financial picture. So what I want to do here today is to just give you some things to think about, some different steps that you could go through as you're setting up your income plan, as you're setting up your distribution strategy for retirement. Here are some things to think about.
All right, so step one in this retirement income strategy is I've got to know how much I need, right?
Exactly.
Know your number.
Yeah, know your number. Let's start figuring out what that gap is. So we've sat down, we've put together a comprehensive budget and do a professional budget. And I'd encourage you not to just do a professional budget, but actually do some tracking. You know, open up some budget tracking software, start using your debit or your credit card so that you can start seeing exactly what you're spending every single month up till maybe do that for 6 months, do it for 3 months so you have a good idea of what your spending needs really are. So we're going to identify what those things are so that we can then identify what those forces of income you're going to have are going to be when you step into retirement, your Social Security, your pension income, maybe rental income, dividend income, so that we can identify what that income gap is. Once we've identified that gap, we can figure out exactly how much we're going to need to supplement those other income sources. And knowing exactly what you're going to need every month can really avoid you overspending during retirement. And I've seen this mistake made in the past. When we step into retirement, we go, well, I'm just going to pull $5,000 when I need it, or $10,000. I don't need a whole lot of income. And then we pull a little bit here, we pull a little bit there, and we start taking too much out of our retirement accounts. We put our retirement at jeopardy because we don't have an income strategy. We're overspending, when in reality what you should have done is just put yourself on a budget, and for those bigger expenses, take the income when we don't necessarily need it. So if we need $4,000 a month, maybe we're taking $5,000, spending $4,000, setting $1,000 aside to maybe take care of vacation that you might have in the future, buying a car in 3 to 5 years.
You know, Lee, we call that really knowing your number, but that is the key to the kingdom, is understanding what the number is and making sure you have a good number. And I think a lot of people struggle with this case. They say, well, I haven't had to live on a budget for years. But the reality is you don't need to live on a tight budget. We just need to figure out what your lifestyle costs, and then we want to build that plan around that, Lee. So knowing that number, making sure it's a good number that has enough fluff built in there for your lifestyle is real important.
For the unexpected stuff. So then along comes these minimum required distributions, right?
Right. Yeah. Once we get to the age of 70 and a half, we have to start taking them the year after we turn 70 and a half. And typically that's around 3.5% of the value of your account. That's going to increase a little bit every single year, may get as high as 8-9% in those later years of retirement. And we want to project forward what those RMDs are. So if we use that conventional wisdom, and let's say you have $1 million saved for retirement, 200,000 of which is in a after-tax account, a brokerage account, or CDs, cash, whatever it is, we've got 800,000 in an IRA, so you retire at 60. Well, in 10 years into retirement, now that $800,000 IRA is turned into a $1.5 million IRA, and now you've got to start taking RMDs from that account that might be to the tune of around $50,000 a year. And now you spent down all that taxable brokerage account, but now you've got an extra 50 grand coming in every year. Maybe you only needed $20,000 a year in income, and now you've got 2 times the amount of income coming in, maybe 3 times the amount of income coming in. It's forcing you to pay more money and more taxes on your Social Security, and maybe even forcing you into a higher tax bracket. So we have to pay attention to our RMDs and make sure we're not overspending. You know, on a previous note, when we talked about the income too, really understanding your income and understanding your gap, I think something, just a side note for you to understand is to say, what are my paychecks and what are my playchecks? What's the money that I can't live without? And then what are the funds that I have set aside as playchecks? So we can separate those things, maybe create guaranteed income for the paychecks. We know that's always going to be there. And then we have some playchecks. That's the fluff. So it's just a little side note. Sorry.
I like the idea of a playcheck now and again.
Well, and I think going back to your point about conventional wisdom says, well, we don't want to draw from our IRAs first. That's a problem if you defer those all the way till 70. We see a lot of baby boomers retiring today where the bulk of their retirement savings are in those IRAs. And if you've got pension and other types of income, that RMD becomes really large. And I think that's what Casey's alluding to here is we don't just take those rules of thumb, apply it to your life. And for some families, Lee, some people are retiring early and have different stages of cash flow. Maybe they're retiring at 57 or 58 and they don't have Social Security for a few years. Yeah. Those are good years to force a lot of the pre-tax dollars into those lower tax buckets.
Yeah. So there's our next tip.
Exactly, right? Which is you've got to maximize all those tax advantaged opportunities.
Take advantage of your tax bracket. Those lower tax brackets, I mean, preferably we want to be in the 10, 15% tax bracket, but you may find that you're in that 25 or 28. I had a couple that I worked with here recently to implement a retirement strategy for, and they're retiring relatively early, and they had some different pension opportunities. They had a 10-year pension where they could take a 10-year certain pension, and that was going to be about $3,500 a month, or they could take a lifetime pension of around $1,000, maybe $1,200 a month. Well, that pension covered all their expenses in its entirety. And that allowed them from age 60 to age 70 to have all their expenses covered via the pension, and they're going to defer their Social Security till age 70, then max out their Social Security benefits. And we ran several different scenarios. The first thing we wanted to find out was, is that the best pension decision? So we analyzed it under 2 different scenarios. If we simply take the lifetime pension and we take Social Security early to supplement the pension, or if we take the 10-year payout and maximize Social Security, which one nets us more? If we looked over the retirement horizon, we ended up with around $1 million more saved if they took that strategy. Then we said, well, what if we start doing Roth conversions? And we found that this allowed us to do huge Roth conversions over that 10-year period and create a tax-free retirement, resulting in almost $2 million in additional funds that they were able to leave behind for their heirs, which was an exciting thing for them.
Yeah, no kidding. So Roths are great tools because I pay taxes on that money now and then use it whenever I need it tax-free. Why do I want to use those Roth dollars last?
Yeah, that's the last thing that we want to touch, if you ever touch those things, because they're going to grow tax-free and they're not even taxable to your heirs. Now, they may be forced to begin to take required distributions out of those Roth IRAs, but they're not taxable distributions. So preserve that tax-free growth for as long as you can, because another side note there is we never know if taxes are going to increase in the future, and that provides you a little bit of flexibility, a little leeway. So typical conventional wisdom is spend down those after-tax funds and defer and take the IRA's traditional funds first, the tax-deferred dollars next, and then we'll leave behind the tax-free dollars for our heirs.
Yeah, you always want that flexibility. The more flexibility you can have when deciding when to pull money out in retirement is always going to be the best thing, because things are going to come up, Lee. You might need a car one year, you might have to put a roof on the next. Having that flexibility to decide when to pay those taxes is always the best bet.
Well, get some professional thinking on your side is my best advice, and you can do that right now. If you are one of the next 10 people to take advantage of our offer, we're offering a complimentary financial review of your entire financial and retirement plan. It's an opportunity to get an education about your investments so you can make the best decisions possible moving forward. So for the next 10 people who call the number right now, 482-9559, Casey and the team will make time on the calendar to visit with you and give you your very own purpose-based retirement. We're back in just a second.
When you have confidence in your retirement future, you can live the life you've always imagined. Because of planning, you now have time to reflect on the wonderful memories of your life. You and your spouse finally have the luxury of leisure time together. To spend fun times with your grandkids, sharing the joy of their excitement about life. Smiling at the thought of quality time with your children and of picking up the check. At last, you have time to breathe and rekindle the love of your life. Why? Because you imagined what could be. You planned for retirement. So today, you own your future.
You need a plan for retirement to create the lifestyle you've always dreamed of. The first step is to tune into the Purpose-Based Retirement Radio Hour with your hosts, Casey Weade and Marshall Johnson, every Saturday morning at 11 and Sunday afternoon at 1 on 1190 WOWO and 107.5 FM.
Yeah.
So we have talked before on this program about the vampire that hits your retirement funds, and that is fees and expenses. So we're going to take that apart a little more deeply this time around with Marshall.
The place that we typically find the highest fees and expenses is either in variable annuities or mutual funds. Those are two of the places we find the highest fees and expenses. And you know why the variable annuity is so expensive? Is because your variable annuity is investing in mutual funds. And so let's really understand right now what type of expenses we're talking about and why these things are so costly.
Marshall's background is you were a mutual fund only advisor for a while, right?
Right, absolutely. So I spent a lot of time, 6.5 years, working inside of the mutual fund industry, kind of learning it backwards and forwards and seeing the performance of my clients and seeing the different types of expenses here, Lee. It's real important, I think, for the vast majority of folks to understand that these are pooled investment vehicles that have a lot of cost, and that's one thing that gets kind of swept under the rug. The first thing that we talk about is stated cost, Casey, and the stated cost is what most people refer to as their expense ratio of their mutual funds. So you may look up Morningstar, you may look at your fund prospectus and say, well, I'm paying 0.91. I think that's the average equity fund right now is about 1%. Well, that's all I'm paying, 1% a year. I don't pay my advisor anything else, or if it's inside my 401k, that's it. But the reality, Lee, is that there's unstated cost as well.
Right, and those unstated costs were stated by the Wall Street Journal back in 2009. They said the average cost of a traditional equity, U.S. equity mutual fund is around 1.5%. But once we include those unstated expenses, which we can actually look at, we just have to project them backwards. And once we actually see what those things are, they said the average unstated expenses double the cost of the average U.S. equity mutual fund. That means that the average U.S. equity mutual fund is close to 3% a year. Now, that's a very expensive fund. There are some cheaper funds out there. Of course, Vanguard offers a lot of the more inexpensive funds, and that's why if we're going to use funds inside of our portfolios that we use, we're going to use Vanguard index funds. We're going to use lower cost funds like spiders, places where we can have a much lower ongoing expense, because that can be the biggest drag on your portfolio. And if you want to know what those things are for yourself, you can look them up. You can actually know what the total cost is for your fund, and if there's a lower cost option out there, go to personalfund.com. Personalfund.com allows you a handful, so just pick a few funds from your portfolio, plug them in there, and you'll see if there's a lower cost alternative. If there's a lower cost alternative and it's dramatically lower than what you're paying today, then you have to start asking yourself, why is my advisor recommending this high cost fund over this other one that's much better performing and much lower expenses? And that's when you might find that you're actually working with a broker that falls under a suitability standard rather than a fiduciary standard. They don't have to put your needs ahead of their own. They got paid more from selling Fund B than they could have from selling Fund A, but hey, you asked for a growth mutual fund, you got a growth mutual fund.
And the tax consequences of mutual funds are often a surprise to people. I mean, there's a lot of buying and selling within the year that generates a tax load for you,
yeah,
right?
I think that's one thing that people typically don't understand, Lee, is every year, it's about this time of year. So if you own mutual funds, take a look at your statement here for the end of the year when it comes to December, because you're going to get some capital gains distributions. And what that really means is inside of that mutual fund, there's a lot of stocks, and they're constantly buying and selling. Well,
and it's not just that they're buying and selling for you, right?
Sure.
No.
I mean, it's not that it's just happening for your purpose. It might be your neighbor because he wanted to put a new garage door on.
Or when the markets are going down and people are panicking, Lee, what's happening is those folks are reaching back into the mutual fund and selling. You don't own stocks inside of a mutual fund. You own shares of that fund.
Right.
So you are responsible for paying those taxes, especially when everybody else is running for the hills. Now it's impacting your taxes, and it can be upwards of 1% a year on an after-tax account where you're paying these fees. And that's the frustrating thing. When we know that, hey, I'm paying my advisor, if they're fee-based, I'm paying them maybe 1.5% a year. Then they're putting me in mutual funds that have costs of 2.5% a year. Yeah. I may have costs north of 4% a year.
And the funds maybe only cost 1% a year, but the tax drag adds another 1% a year. So it's just cost on top of cost on top of cost that can really put a gigantic dent in your retirement.
You know, I'm sorry to cut you off here. I sat down with a family just this morning that was paying 2.71% a year. We analyze their portfolio, and what we do is, could we go to personal fund too? I want a third party to analyze these funds, tell me what I'm paying in cost, and it was 2.71%. They were paying Lee over $45,000 a year in mutual fund costs.
Now, how much was in that portfolio?
It was a little over 1.9 million.
Okay. Now, on a $2 million portfolio, don't we think they're paying a little too much in fees and expenses? They've earned something better.
Yeah, so what choices do I have? If it's not a mutual fund and I want some diversification, what's out there?
There becomes a time in your financial life as you accumulate assets where you do deserve something better. And there's also times when you say, well, mutual funds all I can get. Now, maybe I have $500, we want a diversified portfolio, but I'd say even those times are coming to an end because you can now get actively managed ETFs where you can get professional managed inside of an index fund that's a fraction of the cost of a mutual fund. So there's some of your options, right? There's one. We go to individual ETFs, we go to individual equities, go to individual bonds, and we can have those professionally managed. And we say, well, I don't want to own any individual stocks. Well, there's nothing wrong with owning individual stocks as long as we own quite a few of them. We need to own 30 to 50 individual equities to have a truly diversified portfolio. We don't need to have any more than that.
You know what, Casey? It's an evolution. I had to evolve my business 3.5, 4 years ago to get away from these high-cost vehicles. We see a lot of individuals, you know, I've been doing this 20, 25 years. Well, the reality is they haven't evolved their practice in 20, 25 years. Technology has improved the trading platforms. It's improved what's available to you and I and average Americans. Don't be afraid to get a second opinion because you can sincerely trim the fat.
We can have less holdings and be more diversified. And that might sound weird, but owning everything is not diversification. We have to own things for a specific purpose. And if we own too many different mutual funds, we own everything. And not only do we own everything, but we're not getting any discounts for the size of our portfolio. And we can get massive discounts going to a separately managed account or a unified managed account, sitting down with a fee-based advisor or a fee-only advisor that's not using mutual funds and actually using separately managed accounts can get you massive fee discounts, maybe cut your costs in half or even in 2/3 in some instances.
And the first step to all of that is being one of the next 10 people who call us right now. We're offering a complimentary financial review of your entire financial and retirement plan. It's an opportunity to get an education about what's happening with your money because you want to make the best decisions going forward, don't you? So for the next 10 callers, Casey and the team will make time on their calendar to sit down, visit with you, and give you your very own purpose-based retirement. Our question of the day: which compensation structure for advisors comes with a fiduciary responsibility? Which one of these choices is correct? We have the answer next.
You may have a purpose for your retirement, but have you repurposed your assets to help you achieve your dreams?
At Howard Bailey Financial, we believe in the purpose-based retirement. We help you determine a clear plan of action to get you to your goal. We can help you review all of the variables, find and understand your options, and help you come up with a strategy that gets you closer to your purpose. Let Howard Bailey help you achieve the retirement you deserve.
You need a plan for retirement to create the lifestyle you've always dreamed of. The first step is to tune into the Purpose-Based Retirement Radio Hour with your hosts, Casey Weade and Marshall Johnson, every Saturday morning at 11 and Sunday afternoon at 1 on 1190 WOWO and 107.5 FM.
Heading into the break, we asked you the question, which of these different types of advisors come with a fiduciary responsibility? Casey's going to answer the question and explain that at the same time.
Well, the answer there, Lee, is B. The only one that truly comes with an inherent fiduciary responsibility, the legal responsibility to put your needs ahead of their own, is a fee-only advisor. So is that the only way to go? Is that the only way to eliminate conflicts of interest entirely? And we have to stay away from commission-based advisors. Well, commission-based advisor might be the best opportunity for you given your unique circumstances. And we might also find that a fee-based advisor provides us with more options and the fiduciary standard that we're looking for on the securities side of the business that they're doing, and they provide us with more flexibility. And a fee-only advisor still has a conflict of interest that we're going to go over here. What we're going to spend some time doing in this segment, I get asked all the time, Casey, how do you get paid? And I recently had an article that was published in Kiplinger discussing exactly this. How do financial advisors get paid? And is there a way to receive conflict-free advice? And despite what so many advisors might be telling you, that my way is the best way, I'm a fee-only advisor, I'm conflict-free, there is no such thing as a conflict-free option, and there's no such thing as a perfect way to compensate your financial advisor. But what we can do is we can spend a little bit of time understanding how these different compensation structures work, how to recognize the pros and the cons, and what type of advisor that you're working with, and then we can identify what the right type of advisor is for your given circumstances. I'm here to tell you that despite all the biased opinions that you get out there as people are trying to sell you on their practice, I'm here to tell you that there's no perfect solution, but now we're going to help you understand what might be the right solution for you. So let's start with those different scenarios. What are they and how do they get paid? Fee-only advisors, commission-based advisors, and fee-based advisors. Here are the three different ways, or the three types of advisors that are out there. When we talk about fee-only advisors, they charge potentially a flat consultation charge, an hourly charge for their time, a fee for a specific service, maybe that's tax planning or estate planning or income planning, and a percentage of assets under management. So you may have them manage your portfolio for 1-2% per year. You may also decide to go with a commission-based advisor. A commission-based advisor gets paid from the companies and the products that they're actually selling to you. That would be via an upfront load or product commission or some type of trading commission every time they buy or sell something in your portfolio. If we talk about a fee-based advisor, we're going to typically find a base financial planning fee where they're charging a fee for the actual financial plan, and then they have one of two structures. They might be also not just receiving a fee, but also implementing a plan that allows them to receive commissions from securities or insurance products, or they may only receive insurance commissions, allowing them to manage their at-risk portion of your portfolio under a fiduciary standard or a fee-based standard, and an insurance portfolio, taking some of the risk off the table with those insurance products. What are some of the pros and cons? Let's start with the pros. If we look at a fee-only advisor, we find that we first have an alignment of our goals. The more money you make, the more money they make, because they're charging potentially a fee based on the size of your portfolio. And it says there's no conflict of interest with commissions. So it is true. There is no conflict of interest when it comes with commissions because they can't receive commissions. But there's still potentially conflicts of interest we're going to see in just a moment. And they do have an inherent fiduciary responsibility for the actions they take and the recommendations they have for you, no matter what type of recommendations they have. They have an inherent fiduciary standard, putting your well-being ahead of their own. Then we have a commission-based structure. A commission-based advisor, the pro is that they have the most diversity in their product offerings. So they can offer a lot of products that a fee-only or fee-based advisor potentially can't offer, be that real estate investment trust, variable annuities, variable universal life, etc. And they can implement any and all parts of the financial plan, taking care of not just your at-risk investments, but also if you're seeking from guarantees, you're looking to fill the gaps with life, health, long-term care, etc. They can also fill in the gaps. When we take a look at the fee-based structure, the pro is that we have a wide range of product offerings available to you. Now, there may be some that are reduced, but we still have a wide range, about as wide as a commission-based advisor, and they can implement any and all parts of the financial plan. The client can also choose the compensation structure. So that's a huge benefit. Maybe you want to work with an advisor that has access to all these tools and you just want to pay a fee, or you just want them to act as under their fiduciary responsibility, or you just want them to act as under a commission structure and you don't want anything to do with the market. Then we have fiduciary responsibility also when offering securities. So they have a responsibility when they're offering securities on a fee basis to act legally in your best interest. What's the downside? Well, when it comes to a fee-only advisor, we say, well, there's no conflict of interest with a fee-only advisor, but that's obviously not the case because you may be stuck implementing the plan yourself first and foremost. You charge a fee and then you implement the plan yourself, which you may or may not be able to do. They're very limited in their product offerings. So you may ask yourself why you never get recommended a guaranteed product or long-term care. A lot of those things they can't be compensated on those things. And they have very limited access to fixed indexed annuities. There's only one in the market, and there's 8 variable annuities that they have access to and no variable universal life. There's conflicts of interest with the risk management solution as well. So now you have a mortgage and you've got a $500,000 house with a 4% mortgage. You go to your advisor and say, hey, I want to pay off my mortgage. They say no, because they're still making fees on that portfolio, especially if you say, well, I want to buy long-term care insurance or life insurance. That's taking money out of their pocket. And there's a conflict of interest with risk tolerance. They may be inclined to be more aggressive in order to grow their fees more quickly. A commission-based advisor falls under a suitability standard versus a fiduciary standard, meaning it's just okay. It doesn't have to be the best. And there's a conflict of interest inherently because they're receiving commission in all product offerings. Now, a fee-based advisor, it can be confusing, and they have a suitability standard on their insurance solutions, and they may be limited in their securities offerings, especially the higher risk options. So how do you know? Well, a fee-only advisor holds a Series 65 license, a commission-based advisor holds a Series 7 license, and a fee-based advisor may hold a 65 and a 66 or 7, or an insurance license and an insurance license for that matter. So there's how you can recognize it, and how do you know who's right for you? Well, with a fee-only advisor, maybe you're a do-it-yourselfer. You're just looking for a little guidance and you're going to go implement the plan yourself. You've got some expendable income. That might be a good fit for you. A commission-based advisor, maybe you're just getting started and you have a little minimal income, minimal assets. That might actually be less expensive for you to use a commission-based advisor than a fee-only or fee-based advisor. Maybe you're an investor with extensive assets and you're looking for comprehensive financial advice. You may want to look for a fee-based advisor. So there's the different compensation structures. I wish you find somebody that's very trustworthy first and foremost and offers a structure you're looking for.
And we hope that the first step in that path will be to be one of the next 10 people who give us a call right now. We're offering a complimentary financial review of your entire financial and retirement plan, an opportunity to learn more about your money so you can make really good decisions for yourself moving forward. So for the next 10 people who call the number on your screen, Casey and the team will make time on the calendar to sit down and visit with you and give you your very own purpose-based retirement. Of course, you can always learn more by visiting howardbailey.com. There you can also find the email address if you'd like to send a question to Casey and the team, and you can order a copy of Casey's book at thepurposebasedretirement.com. We'll see you next time.